The Renewable Energy Commission's recommendations for the future of solid waste disposal on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Monday, September 10th, 2012. I'm Sarah Colvin. Last Thursday, Richard Elrick and members of the Renewable Energy Commission gave a presentation to Town Council on their recommendations for the future of solid waste disposal in Barnstable. Elrick joined us on this morning's edition of Barnstable This Morning with details.
The first thing that became obvious was that we needed to increase our recycling rate. The town-wide recycling rate is approximately 16%, which is one of the lowest, certainly on the Cape and in the region. And it's low for a couple of reasons. One, of course, is that 2/3 of our residents use private trash haulers, and there is no required recycling there. And as a matter of fact, a number of the trash haulers charge more to recycle, so there's a real disincentive. And the trash haulers said to the Commission that, in their opinion, the rate of recycling for their customers is only about 10%. And so it gets up to 16% because we do a little bit better at our transfer station. For the 1/3 of the residents that use a transfer station, the recycling rate is somewhere around 30%, but that's actually a little bit inflated because a lot of folks who go to the transfer station, they drop off their solid waste and the recycling, but a lot of people also use the recycling center, I should say the transfer station, to drop off just recyclables because it's free to bring your recyclables there. So it skews that number up, and the recycling rate is actually a little bit lower than that. So we really needed to figure out a way to increase recycling, reduce our solid waste stream. And so the one strategy that seemed the most effective, and we looked all across Massachusetts, all across the country at what other cities and towns were doing, and the concept of pay-as-you-throw became really the one strategy that was the most effective, the most equitable, and provided the most cost savings. The concept is fairly clear, actually. It's sort of like how we use electricity or how we use water. A customer pays for the amount of water or electricity they use, and in pay-as-you-throw, a customer or resident or household pays to dispose of their trash based on the amount of trash they produce. So if you recycle more, you'll pay less, and that's really the theme. It incentivizes people to recycle more.
Absolutely. Now, is there a curbside element that you are recommending as well, or are you simply recommending a pay-as-you-throw program? Where does that curbside come into play?
Well, we and I and the Commission members, as a matter of fact, wanted to approach this in a way that was the most energy-efficient option that we could come up with. And it was very, very clear that what made the most sense was to establish a town-wide curbside pickup program. Presently, as I said, 2/3 of our residents are having their trash picked up at the curbside at a cost of between $500 and $680. So they're paying already a substantial amount of money. We looked at all of the other cities and towns that do a curbside pay-as-you-throw program and found that the average cost per household is well under $300. It went from a low of about $130 to a high of $275. So, and it's fairly obvious why town-wide curbside programs can be so cost and energy efficient. Right now, we've got a situation where we've got 7 separate private trash haulers traversing and crisscrossing each other back and forth across the town. Each hauler has customers in every sector of the town, and in a town-wide curbside program, you'd have one or at least fewer trash haulers in a specific sector of the community. So you'd have incredibly efficient economies of scale, and it would allow the trash hauler, whomever it may be, to pick up people's trash in a much more efficient way. And with the inclusion of pay-as-you-throw, it would help increase recycling. I think a couple of statistics are quite interesting and quite informative on this point. In the research that we did, we saw that in curbside pay-as-you-throw communities, the average trash produced per household was about 0.56 of a ton. And for communities that had no pay-as-you-throw, the amount of trash that an average household produced was about 1.13 tons, so almost twice the amount of trash produced in non-pay-as-you-throw communities. So, it becomes readily apparent that you can increase the amount of recycling if you go to a pay-as-you-throw program. So what the Commission did ultimately was to make two recommendations. Their number one prioritized option, or their number one recommendation, was a town-wide curbside pickup program with a pay-as-you-throw component. And if for whatever reason the town council did not want to go to a curbside system town-wide, then the second recommendation would be for a pay-as-you-throw program for the transfer station users. And for both of those concepts, the Commission recommended that we change our Board of Health trash hauler permitting regulations. Right now, if a trash hauler wants to pick up trash in Barnstable, they have to get a permit or a license from the Board of Health. And presently, as I said, they're not required of the license of the trash haulers to offer recycling at the same price as solid waste pickup. So the new trash hauler regulations would require that the trash haulers would have to pick up trash and recycling for one bundled price, and that would sort of level the playing field. So, there are two series of two recommendations that the Commission's made, and really now the ball is in the town council's court, as well as the Commission's got to get out into the community and talk to residents and explain the program, because I'm sure there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of concern. Anytime you have change, people wonder how's that change going to impact me. So we've got to get out and inform the public, and the town council has to decide, along with staff, how to proceed. And that's sort of where we are at this point.
Now, if we're talking about curbside with a pay-as-you-throw element, though, is that if people want to use the transfer station, it's a pay-as-you-throw, or are there specific bags they'd have to use in the curbside pickup? How would that work?
Well, the recommendation of the Commission is to go to a curbside program, and where customers would have to purchase specific pay-as-you-throw bags. But the idea would be that at least in a reduced capacity, the transfer station would be kept open. And so that, in effect, customers, residents, households of Barnstable would have the option of continuing to use the transfer station. Now, the devil's in the details, as people like to say, and we won't know the specific cost, particularly for the curbside program, until the Solid Waste Division staff are able to put together an RFP and get some responsive bids and see what the cost would ultimately be. But we're trying to fashion a program here that achieves its goals of reducing solid waste in a cost-effective fashion, but at the same time to give residents as much flexibility and as many options as possible. Well, one of the approaches that we saw in one community was where the town did an RFP seeking what was described as a preferred vendor. So they, after the RFP process, settled on one vendor and made that vendor available to the households of the community. However, if there were residents that desired to keep their current private trash hauler, they were allowed to do so. But what the town found was, because the private vendor, who was the preferred vendor, had received the majority of households in the community, he was able to offer a much better price, better services. So you still had a positive net effect, and more people went to the preferred vendor, but it did allow customers, if they wanted to maintain their private hauler, which is the case
You
now.
can view the REC's entire presentation to the Town Council online at town.barnstable.ma.us. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.